The silent arrival. The night was calm over the human colony. Stars were shining above the sky like tiny lanterns. The wind moved softly between the metal houses and empty streets. Everyone was asleep, but then a sound broke the silence. A deep rumble echoed across the valley. The ground shook like an earthquake. Animals screamed. Lights flickered inside the colony. And then they saw it, a massive alien ship descending from the clouds, its black metal surface glowing with strange blue symbols. It landed just outside the colony walls, dust rising into the air. People rushed out of their homes, fear in their eyes. Children cried. Guards loaded their rifles. No one had ever seen such a ship before. It looked old, battle-scarred, yet powerful. The colony leader shouted for everyone to stay back. The ship's engines went silent. The air grew heavy. Then a ramp lowered slowly. Every sound of the metal grinding made hearts beat faster. From the darkness of the ship, a huge shadow appeared. And then he stepped forward, the alien giant. He was at least 8 feet tall. His shoulders wide, his body covered in scars. His armor looked broken, but strong, glowing with faint red lines. In one hand he carried a strange weapon, taller than a man. In the other, he held nothing. His eyes glowed like fire. The crowd gasped. In fear, some screamed. Others ran back into their houses. No one dared to move closer. The guards aimed their guns, but their hands were shaking. The alien giant stood still, silent, watching the humans. He did not attack. He did not move forward. He just stood there, as if waiting for something. Rumors spread quickly. People whispered that this was the creature they had heard of in old stories, a warrior from the stars who had destroyed armies. Some said he was a killer. Some said he was a messenger of death. But no one knew the truth, and no one was brave enough to ask. The night grew colder. Torches burned near the colony gates, but still the alien giant did not leave. He stood in silence for hours, his glowing eyes never blinking. It was as if time itself had stopped. Children peeked from windows, asking their parents why the monster did not attack. Mothers pulled them back in fear. Fathers stood ready with weapons, but none dared to fire. The leader of the colony called a meeting, but even inside the hall the voices shook. No one knew what to do. Should they attack him? Should they wait? Or should they run? Every choice seemed dangerous. Meanwhile, the giant simply stood, his breathing slow, steady, deep, his shadow stretching across the ground like a mountain. Some colonists thought he was a machine. Others thought he was a demon. But in truth, he was watching, waiting, perhaps even listening. Hours passed, and still he did not move. Fear grew heavier. It was like a wall pressing on everyone's chest. Even the bravest soldiers felt their courage draining away. No one wanted to be the first to step closer. No one wanted to test the strength of the giant. The alien giant finally raised his head toward the stars. His glowing eyes reflected the night sky. He let out a sound, not a roar, not a scream, but a low, deep breath that echoed like thunder. It made the air vibrate. People fell to their knees in fear. The guards dropped their rifles. Everyone thought death was coming, but again, he did nothing. It was the silence that was more terrifying than any attack. Silence that made the humans feel powerless. Silence that told them this giant was not here by accident. He had come for a reason. Inside the colony, Daniel, a young soldier, watched from the shadows. His heart racing. He had seen fear before, but never like this. The entire colony was paralyzed. Thousands of people frozen by one single alien. Daniel clenched his fists. He could not understand why the giant waited, why he did not attack. What was he looking for? The night stretched on. No one dared to sleep. No one dared to blink. All eyes stayed fixed on the alien giant, standing alone beneath the stars, his presence larger than life itself. And so began the longest night in the history of the colony. A night of fear, of whispers, of silence. The night of the silent arrival. Whispers of fear. The alien giant did not move. Not a single step, not a single gesture. Yet his presence pressed on the hearts of every human in the colony. The night dragged into morning, But no one felt the warmth of the sun, because fear still held them tight. Inside their homes, families whispered in trembling voices. Mothers told children to stay away from the windows. Fathers sat with rifles on their laps but did not dare to use them. Even the sound of a door creaking open made people jump in terror. The council gathered again in the central hall, faces pale, eyes restless. They argued in low voices. Some demanded the alien be killed before he attacked. Others said firing first would bring disaster. No one could agree. Their words carried fear, not courage. Why does he stand there and wait? One elder asked with shaking hands. Maybe he is studying us, another replied. Maybe he is calling more of his kind. The leader banged the table. Enough, he said. We do nothing until we understand what he wants. But his voice was weak. Even he was afraid. Outside, the giant remained like a statue. The air around him felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Guards were posted near the gate, but none could look him in the eyes. His glowing stare made them turn away. Their fingers trembled on the triggers. They whispered prayers under their breath. Children spread rumors faster than the council's orders. They whispered that the alien could crush buildings with his bare hands. Some said he drank the blood of his enemies. Others swore he could read human thoughts. Each rumor grew wilder, and with every word the fear grew stronger. Daniel, the young soldier, watched all of this with burning frustration. He sat in silence, at the edge of the meeting, listening to grown men argue and children cry. His mind filled with questions. Was the alien really a monster? Or was something else hidden behind that silence? At nightfall again, the colony was wrapped in whispers. Shadows stretched across the walls. No music, no laughter, no fire crackled in the streets. Fear had stolen every sound. The alien giant was like a ghost haunting them. A group of miners argued near the supply depot. We cannot live like this. We must drive him away. One said. Are you mad? Did you see the size of him? He will kill us all in one swing, another answered. Their voices faded into whispers when the giant's head turned slightly, as if he heard them. Though he was far away, the miners froze. Their words died in their throats. Daniel walked through the colony streets, hearing pieces of conversations behind closed doors. He is waiting for us to attack, then he will destroy everything. No, he is a sign of doom. Maybe our colony is cursed. Every word was soaked in fear. No one thought of speaking to the alien. No one thought of courage. At the main watchtower, two guards argued quietly. One wanted to shoot the alien in the leg to see how he reacted. The other begged him not to, saying they would all be slaughtered. In the end, they did nothing. Their rifles stayed cold. The whispers became more dangerous than the giant himself. Fear was spreading like poison, eating away at the courage of the colony. Soon, even the council stopped giving orders, too afraid to take responsibility. That night, Daniel sat outside his barrack, his eyes fixed on the giant. The alien still stood silently, looking not at the colony, but at the stars. Daniel felt a strange pull. It was as if the giant was not here for war, but for something greater, something no one else dared to see. While the colony whispered, Daniel's heart whispered something else, an urge to step forward, to end this endless silence, to ask the question no one dared to ask. As the wind howled and fear spread like fire through the settlement, only Daniel's eyes held a spark of defiance. Only Daniel's breath carried the thought that perhaps this alien was waiting not for war, but for a human brave enough to come close. And so, while the colony drowned in whispers of fear, the seed of a decision grew inside him, a decision that would change everything. The step forward, the whispers did not stop. They grew louder, heavier, each person in the colony carrying fear like a chain around their neck. Another night fell, and still the alien giant stood unmoving, like a monument of war under the starlit sky. Daniel sat alone in his small barrack, the glow of a weak lantern flickering on the walls. He could still hear the murmurs outside, the same words repeated again and again. He will kill us if we move closer. He waits for reinforcements. He is the end of us all. Daniel closed his eyes, anger boiling in his chest. Fear had turned the colony into prisoners inside their own walls, and no one dared. To break the silence, he thought of his childhood, of the stories his father used to tell him. Stories of humans standing tall, even when faced with impossible enemies. His father's voice echoed in his mind. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is walking forward while fear still breathes in your heart. Daniel's hand trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of choice. If he stepped forward, he might never return, but if he stayed behind, he would be no different from. The whispers outside. The alien giant lifted his head slowly, his glowing eyes scanning the colony, his breath like rolling thunder in the stillness of night. Daniel felt those eyes pulling at him. Not like a weapon, but like a challenge. He stood gripping his rifle, not to attack, but to give himself strength. Every step toward the colony gates felt heavier. His boots echoed on the stone, and with each sound people turned to look at him. Shocked, afraid, whispering his name. What is he doing? He has lost his mind. Someone stop him before it is too late. But no one moved to block his path. Fear chained them to the ground, and so Daniel walked on. The only sound was his footsteps and the cold wind between the buildings. At the gate, 2 guards froze as he approached. One raised a hand, his voice trembling. "Daniel, don't do this." But Daniel only looked at him, his eyes steady. "We cannot live like this," he whispered, and pushed past them. The massive gates creaked open, the sound cutting through the silence like a blade. Daniel stepped into the open field. The ground still scarred from the alien ship's landing. Dust clung to his boots. The night sky stretched endlessly above. The alien giant shifted slightly. His enormous figure casting a shadow across the ground, his glowing eyes locked onto Daniel. The crowd behind the walls gasped. Many covered their mouths in fear. They expected death. They expected blood. But Daniel did not stop. His legs shook. His heart pounded. But he kept walking. One step, then another. The distance closed slowly, painfully, until Daniel could see the scars carved into the aliens' armor, the strange red light that pulsed through it like veins. The alien giant tilted his head, his expression unreadable. He raised his weapon slightly, not in threat, but as if testing Daniel's courage. The humans watching from the walls cried out, but Daniel kept going, his eyes fixed on the giant. Finally, Daniel stopped a few feet away. The air between them felt alive, heavy, his breath misting in the cold night. The giant lowered his weapon again, his glowing eyes narrowing, and for the first time, he moved slowly, placing one massive hand on his chest, a gesture, simple yet powerful. The crowd behind the walls fell into stunned silence. No one had ever seen the alien move without violence. No one understood. But Daniel did. He realized it was not a threat. It was respect. He took a deep breath, lowering his rifle to the ground, and raised his own hand to his chest, copying the gesture. The giant's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, like embers in a fire stirred by wind. The bond was silent, yet undeniable. For the first time, the whispers inside the colony stopped, replaced by shock, awe, and something new. Hope. Daniel had stepped forward where no one else dared, and the alien giant had answered not with death, but with acknowledgement. And in that moment, the fate of both human and alien began to change. Asterisk. The giant speaks. The field between the colony and the alien giant was silent. The wind carried only dust and tension. Daniel stood a few feet from the towering figure, his hand still on his chest, the same gesture the alien had given him. The crowd behind the walls watched with wide eyes, breaths held, hearts beating as one. The giant tilted his head, his glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. Then he made a sound, low and deep, a vibration that rolled through the air like distant thunder. The ground seemed to hum with it. Daniel's chest shook from the force. People on the walls covered their ears in fear. Then, in a voice that was rough and broken, but still clear, the alien giant spoke words in the human tongue, his tone slow. heavy, as if each word cost him strength. I did not come for war. The sound of his voice froze the colony in place. No one had expected him to speak. No one had expected him to know their language. Whispers rippled through the walls. But Daniel stood steady, his eyes never leaving the giant. The alien lowered his weapon, letting its tip rest on the ground. Sparks of red light pulsed through the strange metal as if alive. His other hand clenched into a fist, and he spoke again, louder this time. I seek help, the word struck. Like a hammer, confusion spread among the people. Help? From humans? This being who looked like a god of war, who could crush buildings with his hands, was asking for help? Daniel's throat felt dry. His voice almost failed him, but he forced the question out. Help? With what? The giant's eyes burned brighter. His deep breath echoed across the valley. Then he spoke again, each word sharp and heavy. My people are chained, enslaved, dying. The colony erupted in gasps, disbelief, shock. The whispers returned. A trick. Someone hissed from the wall. He lies, he wants us to lower our guard. But Daniel did not move. His courage held him firm. The alien giant's voice grew softer, almost painful. I was once a warrior. I fought for my people. But we lost. His hand touched one of the scars on his armor. The glowing red veins flickered as if remembering old wounds. I escaped to find allies. Before all is gone. Daniel's heart pounded. The silence between each word felt endless, but there was no hatred in the giant's tone, only sorrow and exhaustion behind the walls. The council leader shouted down, his voice filled with fear. Do not listen, Daniel, it is a trap. He waits to strike. Come back inside. But Daniel ignored the call. His eyes locked with the giant's. He saw not a monster, but a survivor. Not a destroyer, but a being desperate for hope. The alien giant knelt slowly, his massive form shaking the ground as he lowered himself. He brought one fist to the earth, a gesture of humility. His glowing eyes dimmed slightly, his voice a low rumble. I will not harm your people. I swear by my life. The crowd behind the walls was silent now, torn between terror and disbelief. No alien had ever sworn an oath to humans. No alien had ever spoken such words. Daniel stepped closer, his fears still heavy but no longer in control. Why us? Why humans? He asked, his voice steady. The giant lifted his head, his gaze burning with a strange respect. Because you are not afraid to fight. Even when hope is gone, he said, his words broken but full of meaning. The crowd murmured again, some with awe, others with doubt. The council leader shook his head in anger. Do not trust in Daniel. He will destroy us. But deep down, even his voice trembled. Daniel stood between the giant and his people, his decision hanging in the air like a blade. His courage now carried the weight of the entire colony, and for the first time since the ship had landed, the whispers of fear faded, replaced by a heavy silence, the kind of silence that comes before a choice that could change everything. The alien giant had spoken, and the truth was no longer hidden. He was not a silent monster, not a ghost of war, but a warrior broken by loss, standing before humans not as a conqueror, but as a seeker of allies. And Daniel knew this was only the beginning. A dangerous truth. The council hall was filled with noise, voices rising and falling like waves in a storm. The moment Daniel returned from the field, every leader, soldier, and elder demanded answers. He told them what the alien giant had spoken. About chains, about slavery, about enemies coming. But instead of calm, his words set the room on fire. He lies, one counselor shouted, slamming his fist on the table. No creature like that asked for help. He prepares to strike. And the boy has walked straight into his trap. Another shook his head. But he had the chance to kill Daniel and did not. That means something. Maybe his words are true. The leader of the colony raised his hand for silence, but even he could not hide the unease in his eyes. We cannot trust him, he said firmly. We must protect our people. If we let him stay, we invite death to our doors." The whispers of fear had turned into shouts of anger. But Daniel stood in the middle of the storm, his jaw tight, his voice cutting through the noise. "You are blind, all of you. If you wanted us dead, he could have destroyed this colony the moment he stepped off his ship. But he didn't. He came for help, and we sit here hiding like frightened children." The room went silent for a heartbeat. Daniel's words stung like truth often does. But fear rose again, stronger, drowning reason. Outside, the alien giant waited in silence, standing near his ship, his glowing eyes fixed on the horizon, as if he already knew what was coming. Later that night, Daniel returned to the gates. The alien giant looked down at him, his voice heavy with sorrow. "They do not believe," he said slowly, almost as if he could read Daniel's thoughts. Daniel clenched his fists. "They are afraid. They only see a monster." The giant lowered his head. "Fear blinds until it is too late." Then his eyes blazed brighter. His tone sharpened, carrying the weight of doom. "The enemy is near. They hunt me even now. And when they come, they will not stop at me. They will burn your colony. They will burn your world." Daniel's heart pounded. The truth pressed against his chest like a blade. This was not just a story of an enslaved people. This was a warning of war, a storm already moving toward them. The next day, the council spread orders to prepare defenses, not for the enemy the giant had spoken of, but for the giant himself. Barricades were built, weapons loaded, men trained. Their fear of him had grown so deep that they could not see beyond it. Daniel argued with them until his voice was hoarse. "You are preparing for the wrong war," he shouted. "The enemy is out there, not here." But no one listened. Fear had deafened their ears at dusk. Daniel walked again to the alien, his face shadowed by the fading sun. "They will not believe you," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. The giant looked at him with steady eyes. "Belief will come when fire falls from the sky." Daniel shivered. The words felt like prophecy. In the colony, whispers twisted into dangerous talk. Some demanded the alien be executed before his army arrived. Others prayed he would simply leave. But no one dared to face him directly, no one except Daniel. That night, Daniel stood on the watchtower, staring at the stars, his hands gripping the rail. The colony slept uneasily below him, but in the sky he thought he saw faint flashes of light, distant yet moving, as if ships were crossing the void. He remembered the alien's words, "They will burn your world," and for the first time, Daniel realized that fear inside the colony was not their greatest enemy. The real danger was racing toward them from the stars, but the others could not see it, not yet. And so the dangerous truth settled in Daniel's heart. Time was running out. The enemy was coming, and when they arrived, only the courage to trust. The alien giant could save them. Trial of fire. The night was restless. The colony wrapped in silence, but not in peace. Guards stood on the walls with rifles clutched tight. Families huddled in their homes. The alien giant still waited near his ship, a shadow against the stars. Daniel could not sleep. He paced the watchtower, his eyes locked on the heavens. Then it happened. A streak of light cut across the sky. Fast, sharp, unnatural. At first the guards thought it was a falling star. But then more appeared, dozens of burning trails ripping through the black. The sky seemed to split open. Red and gold fire raining downward. Alarms screamed through the colony. Bells rang. Voices shouted, "Ships! Enemy ships!" Panic flooded the streets. Children cried. Men and women ran for cover. The council, who had ignored every warning, now looked at the burning heavens with pale faces. Daniel's heart pounded. The giant's words echoed inside him. "When you see the sky burn red, they are here." The truth had arrived. The first explosion struck beyond the hills, shaking the earth. Fire lit up the valley. Enemy vessels tore through the clouds, their black hulls marked with cruel symbols. Weapons glowed at their sides, searching, hunting. The alien giant moved at last, his massive form rising like a mountain. He lifted his weapon from the dirt, its red veins blazing bright. He looked to the colony walls. His voice thundered across the valley. "Now you see." But the guards panicked. Rifles rose toward him instead of the sky. Fear still blinded them. "Shoot him." One shouted, hands shaking, but before they fired, Daniel climbed down from the tower and ran in front of the guns, his voice cutting through chaos. "Not him! They are out there! Look at the sky!" Another explosion thundered closer, enemy dropships descending with blinding speed. Beams of energy scorched the ground, walls trembled, people screamed. Now there was no denying it. The giant had spoken the truth. The council shouted orders. But their words were lost in the storm of panic. Soldiers scattered. The colony's defenses were weak compared to the enemy's power. The alien giant roared, a sound that shook the earth. He charged forward, his weapon glowing like molten fire. When the first enemy dropship landed, spewing armored figures onto the ground, the giant smashed into them like a living storm. His weapon cleaved through metal and bone alike. His strength a force no human had ever seen. Daniel watched in awe. The giant fought not for conquest, but for protection. Each strike aimed at the invaders, not at the colony. His body burned with red light as if the scars of his past battles had awakened. Still, chaos consumed the colony. Buildings caught fire. Walls cracked under bombardment. Soldiers tried to fight but were scattered. Fear made them weak. But Daniel did not run. He grabbed his rifle and followed the giant into the storm. He fired at the enemy, covering the giant's flank, a human fighting beside an alien. For the first time, man and giant stood as one. The people on the walls froze as they watched, their fear clashing with the sight before them. Daniel and the alien, back to back, fighting against the same enemy. Their courage sparked something inside the colonists. Whispers turned into shouts. If Daniel fights with him, maybe he is not the enemy. If the giant wanted us dead, we would already be gone. And slowly soldiers regained their courage. They began to fire at the invaders instead of the giant, their fear breaking like chains. The battle raged, fire lighting the night. The enemy ships circling above, their weapons raining destruction. The colony screamed in chaos. But in the heart of it all stood the alien giant, his roars shaking the sky, his strikes shaking the ground, and beside him, a single human who dared to believe. When the first wave of enemies fell, the ground was littered with broken metal and lifeless bodies. Smoke rose high. The giant stood breathing heavily, his glowing eyes burning with fire. Daniel at his side, his rifle smoking, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. The colonists stared from the walls in silence, their fear shattered, replaced by awe. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. The giant had not come to destroy them. He had come to save them. And yet, above the burning horizon, more enemy ships moved. Larger, darker, their shadows crawling closer. The battle was not over. It had only begun. The new alliance smoke rose above the valley. The colony walls were cracked. The ground burned with black scars. Bodies of the enemy lay scattered like broken machines. The first wave had been defeated, but the night was far from quiet above them. More enemy ships moved slowly in the sky, their lights glowing like hungry eyes. Daniel stood at the giant's side, chest heaving, rifle heavy in his hands. His ears still rang from the chaos. The alien giant's armor glowed faintly with red veins of fire, his massive frame scarred and bleeding. Yet he stood tall, unbroken. The colonists peered from the walls, silence spreading across them. They had seen it with their own eyes. The giant did not destroy them. He defended them. His roars had driven back the invaders. His strength had shielded their homes. The whispers of fear were gone, replaced by awe. The colony leader finally stepped forward, his face pale, his voice shaking, but not with anger, with shame. "We were wrong," he admitted, his words carrying across the field. "You came not as a monster, but as a protector." The alien giant turned his glowing eyes toward the wall. His voice thundered, broken but clear. "I came Because I cannot fight alone." The words struck deep. The truth laid bare. This was not only his fight, it would become theirs. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his voice rising for all to hear. "You see now, he told us the truth. The enemy hunts him, but they will hunt us too. If we do nothing, we die alone. But if we stand with him, we live." Murmurs spread through the crowd, not whispers of fear, but of courage. Soldiers gripped their rifles tighter. Citizens raised their heads. Something new stirred in the colony. A flame of unity. The alien giant lowered his weapon, pressing its blade into the dirt. His massive form kneeling, he placed his fist to the ground. A warrior's vow, his voice carrying through the smoke. "By my life, I swear to fight beside you." Daniel looked at him, then turned to the people, his own hand pressed to his chest. "Then let us swear the same, not as cowards hiding behind walls, but as humans, as fighters, as allies." The colony erupted, not in fear, not in panic, but in a cry of resolve, voices rising together, weapons raised to the sky. The sound echoing across the valley like thunder. For the first time since the ship had landed, humans and the alien giant stood on the same side, not divided by fear, but united by courage. The giant rose again, towering over them, his glowing eyes burning with pride. He looked down at Daniel, and for a moment, his voice softened. "You stepped forward when no one else did." Daniel nodded, his face steady. "And I will again." Above, the enemy ship shifted, preparing for another strike. The sky glowed with their weapons. The storm was not over. The war had just begun. But the colony no longer trembled. Their fear had been broken. Their hearts hardened into steel. The alien giant lifted his weapon high, its red veins blazing bright. Daniel raised his rifle beside him, and the people behind the walls raised theirs too. A line of humans standing behind a single alien. In that moment, a new bond was forged, one that would echo across the stars. A giant once feared, a human once alone, now stood together, and with them, an entire colony ready to fight. And though the night still burned with enemy fire, the dawn of a new alliance had begun.